Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about top 10 most important events in history. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. Hopefully, at some point in a person's education, they have an opportunity to discuss this question: which were the most important moments in history and why? Human history is chock full of pivotal moments, inventions that enabled evolutions, events that sparked movements, and movements that changed the entire world. History is long and full of these moments, which are too many to count and impossible to compare. Nevertheless, I've endeavored to compile this list of the 10 most important moments in human history. Number 10, the Neolithic Revolution, the shift from hunting-gathering to farming, 10,000 BC. Imagine a map that is devoid of neighborhoods, cities, borders, or regions. This is how the Earth may appear if humanity had never ceased looking for food, and instead started growing and raising their own. There is no record of the pivotal events that triggered this change, like when people realized that seeds could be planted and how to enrich soils. Certainly, the shift away from wild harvesting was modest, but about 12,000 years ago, a shift to agriculture ushered in a profound shift in human behavior. Not only did the transformation from nomadic, hunter-gatherer practices to permanent settlements and farms result in a more reliable food supply and consistent sources of nutrition, but it also altered the shape of civilizations. Some claim that this transition sowed the seeds of capitalism and private ownership. Towns and cities were formed as a result of permanent constructions and settlements. The ability to supply the population's demand for more food and meat resulted in population explosions. 10,000 years ago, the world's population was around 5 million people. Today, it is over 7 billion. Having permanent, consistent food sources freed up some time for people to do things other than think about food, such as construct things, develop new things, create art or medicine, develop religions, do science, and so on. As a result, the capacity to control food sources played an important role in the development of what we now call culture and civilization. Number 9, the end of the Western Roman Empire, September 4, 476 CE. The Roman Empire lasted about 500 years and spanned almost 780,000 kilometers, making it one of history's greatest and most influential empires. It enjoyed a long and prosperous reign, but in 476 CE, a Germanic rebel named Odoacer staged a successful revolt against Romulus Augustulus, the emperor at the time. Romulus Augustulus was only 16 years old when he was ousted, and he had only been in power for a year. Despite the fact that all Roman emperors were given the name Augustus, which means venerable, he was given the derogatory epithet Momyllus Augustulus, which roughly translates to little disgrace, because many people blame him for the demise of the Western Roman Empire. Was he to blame? Not totally, at least. Romulus Augustulus simply had the misfortune of being the last man standing with the hot potato. In the end, the military ruled the country, and its armies were made up of paid troops who fought not out of love or allegiance, but just to make a profit. Years of increasing government corruption, commerce and trade failures, broad economic crises, and class disputes all played a role. Number 8, the first university opens in 895 CE in Fez, Morocco. The University of Kairouan, University of Al-Qarawiyyin, founded in 859 CE in Fez, Morocco, by Fatima bint Muhammad al-Fihriya al-Qarashiyya, is the world's oldest continuously operating institution of higher study. That's correct. A lady founded the first university, although women were not admitted to the institution until the 1940s. Although it began as a mosque, its teachings evolved through centuries, and it became a well-known general educational institution, albeit it wasn't officially designated as a state university until 1963. It is listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's first university. Can you picture a world without educational institutions? The notion that learning is valuable, and that ideas should be recognized, documented, discussed, shared, and passed down has had a profound impact on the world. It is anticipated that 600 million students will be enrolled in universities around the world each year by 2040. Number 7. The Renaissance, 1300s in Florence, Italy. The Renaissance, which literally means rebirth, was a beautiful period in human history that began in Florence, Italy, in the 14th century and expanded throughout Europe. Following the Middle Ages, there was a period of cultural, political, and economic regeneration marked by the rediscovery of classical art, literature, and philosophy, which sparked a massive flood of creative thought and innovation that lasted until the 17th century. It was a shift away from fear and toward beauty, truth, and knowledge in general. It consisted of: Number 6, the start of the First Industrial Revolution, 1760. In the 18th century, new industrial advances enabled civilizations to centralize, specialize, and flourish, ushering in the First Industrial Revolution. With the transcontinental railroad, cotton gin, steam engine, factories, electricity, and other technologies that changed society forever, it began in Britain's textile sector and extended to other fields and countries. The first American factory was erected in 1790 by Samuel Slater, regarded as the father of the American Industrial Revolution. Number 5, the shot heard around the world on April 19, 1775, the start of the American Revolution. The triumph of the American Revolution and Republic has resulted in the majority of the world's nations being nominal republics, at least. With the end of British authority came the possibility of a new type of government, one that was truly for the people, although it was only for white men at first. This concept of democracy was novel, yet it appealed to people all around the world, and had far-reaching, long-term consequences. The first gunfight between British soldiers, redcoats, and colonists, Minutemen, took place at Lexington, Massachusetts on April 19, 1775. Although it is uncertain who fired the initial shot, it was termed the shot heard round the world, since it heralded the start of the American Revolution and was the first step toward the formation of the United States of America. Number 4, the Ogay Rebellion of the Haitian Revolution, August-September 1791. Slavery has undoubtedly existed for as long as humans have, and it still continues, now, despite decades of anti-slavery legislation and protests. Despite the fact that most countries have long history of efforts to abolish human trafficking, the practice continues to be widespread. According to the Global Slavery Index, roughly 40.3 million people are enslaved today, with 71% of them being women and 25% being children. Because it is impossible to pinpoint the beginning or end of slavery, we must instead look to anti-slavery protests to include it on this list. In 1791, an affranchise, freed slave, named Jacques Vincent Ogay led a group of enslaved people in a revolt against the French in Haiti, then known as Saint-Domingue. He armed and amassed 300 men, largely mixed race, and free black people, with the help of abolitionists, and commanded a common front of gens de couleur against the forces of white supremacy. Number 3, 1796 first vaccine invented. The start of the medical revolution since the 1900s, smallpox, one of history's worst illnesses, is thought to have killed at least 300 million people. However, the World Health Organization proclaimed it eradicated in 1980. We can thank Edward Jenner for this. In 1796, he developed the first vaccine using a live cowpox virus for smallpox. Despite the fact that variolation, the practice of smearing an infected sample on a healthy person to confer immunity, had been practiced in China since the 11th century, Jenner was the first to demonstrate it to a scientific community, and his work led to the development of the first smallpox vaccine in 1798. Number 2, November 9, 1989, the day the Berlin Wall came down, the end of the Cold War. The fall of the Berlin Wall was a significant symbolic event, even if it was primarily a ceremonial act. This event is included instead of World War I and II on this list. What is the reason for this? Because when the Berlin Wall collapsed, many of the animosities that had grown during those wars and the Cold War were figuratively put to rest. After the war, Germany was divided in 1949, with half of the country, the East, under communist rule and the other half, the West, under a more democratic government. On August 12, 1961, a barbed wire and cinder block fence was erected across the border in Berlin, Germany's capital, primary urban hub, and cultural heart. It was replaced with a 15-foot concrete wall studded with armed guards, and draped with electric wire, an imposing physical image of the Iron Curtain that separated the two ideologies. Number 1. The invention of the Internet, 1960s. Millennials find it difficult to picture a world without the Internet. The Internet has had such a profound impact on how things are done, that it's difficult for anyone alive now to recall what life was like before it. The US Department of Defense created ARPANET, the first operational prototype, in the late 1960s. Although the Internet was not widely used until later, the first message was sent from UCLA to Stanford on October 29, 1969. Stanford only received the first two letters of this one-word notification, login, since the system broke while transmitting it. Lo, which seems appropriate given that lo is an old-fashioned phrase for wonderful, interesting thing, lo and behold. Researchers didn't start putting together the network of networks that would eventually become the modern-day Internet until 1983, and computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee established the World Wide Web in 1990. www. What do you think about this video? Which of the following top 10 most important events in history you find most interesting? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.